Welcome to a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda.
If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Good morning and welcome to the May 7th meeting of the Lorain County Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Kalo has our dog from the kennel this morning.
Come here. Come on. There you go. Come on, look at the camera. Can you sit down? Can you sit? Good girl.
Wow.
This week we have a great dog. She's about 6 years old. She's a Lab Shepherd mix. She's got a great personality. She's gonna make somebody a great dog. A little bit of a problem on her back here, but that'll heal up in time, right, Tim? Yeah. I said she's just a real friendly dog. She'll make a great family dog for someone. We currently have 25 dogs in our dog kennel, and she is actually available for adoption today. She's been here since last week, so stop by our kennel and pick up a great dog. Come on, girl.
Oh, no.
You want Balmer? You want Balmer? You want to go home with him? Come on. Come on. Good dog. Madam Clerk,
Would we like to do solid waste first?
could we start with Keith Bailey, please?
Yes, Mr. Bailey, Director Solid Waste, regards to the update programs and grants.
Commissioners, Keith Bailey, Solid Waste Director for Lorain County. One of the things I found the toughest to do is build bridges in this county and build bridges with partners. We were able to go in the City of Oberlin a year ago and strike a partnership to help them draft and build a zero waste plan for the City of Oberlin and for the college. We're successful in that. In fact, it's past council now. So in that process, we didn't know we were going to have a little tragedy happen along the way, but we were hopeful that we would go the cart recycling in Oberlin in about 2 years. Well, we had a little fire on February 15th that destroyed everything that Oberlin had, all the garbage trucks, all the recycling trucks, all their equipment in their garage. And I started talking with them the next day, on Monday morning after the fire, and then I talked to Jim, and we decided to put a plan in action. I went to EPA and I groveled, something I don't do very well. And I asked, and I knew we were late, and I know it was out of sequence, but sometimes you build friendships and partners even with the EPA. They took my request forward to the director. They allowed us to apply for a grant for Oberlin to buy the recycling truck, all right? And we did that. We received the grant. The director signed off on the contract last week. So we now have a contract and a check coming from EPA to assist Oberlin in their efforts to replace their trucks. Then I was informed by Jeff Bauman at the City of Oberlin that exciting new things are happening in Oberlin as a result of all this. And went to council on Monday evening to hear council approve the acquisition of 3 new hybrid vehicles for Oberlin. These are the first of their kind in the state of Ohio. Miami County just rolled them out in Miami-Dade on April 18th, so they're brand new. What is really exciting about these trucks is the fact that they're hybrid. They use a combination of diesel fuel and electric. The chassis is American made in Indiana. It's made, it's an Autocar E3 chassis and powered by Parker Hannafin hybrid drives, made in Columbus, Ohio, with parts coming back to Lorain County. So this is a real coup. The bodies are from Tennessee. They are the chassis is a Python from Heil Corporation, which is headquartered in Tennessee, and we should expect to see trucks in 120 days. Give you some ideas of the things that this will do for the city of Elyria. It will reduce their usage of diesel fuel by 2,800 gallons a year. It'll save them a little over $10,000 in fuel costs, $10,600, and it'll reduce their CO2 emissions in the city by 31.47 tons a year. This is a real first. Like I said, we'll be seeing those trucks in about 120 days. The director of EPA is very excited about this. They've had conversations with the governor's office. There'll be a big thing in Lorain County later in the year, I assure you that. So my hat's off to Oberlin and their hybrid trucks.
Thank you, Keith. Nice job. Madam Clerk?
Under Resolutions, Job and Family Services Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Investments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
No advances, no repayments, requisitions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Travel.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Under the Commissioners, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary sheet for employees within jurisdiction of Lorain County Commissioners.
Mr. Cordez?
Thank you, Commissioner Kalo. I do have a number of personnel issues this morning. Actually, this time we have like 8 potential new hires at Golden Acres. So, got a couple applications to review. Custodial, solid waste, job and family services, Kano, Golden Acres, as I said earlier. So, we need to look those over. We can discuss them after you review them. Also, potential sale, real estate, and if you'd like an update on union negotiations both at 911 and at the Sheriff's Department. All those topics allowable for executive session discussions. So under the Sunshine Act, so at the conclusion of our regular board meeting, we go into executive session and we talk about those items that I've outlined. Thank you.
Approve and waive the reading of the minutes of April 30th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Enter into agreement with Sue Quayle to provide the operation of a full-service cafeteria in the lower level of the administration building, effective June 2nd, 2014 through May 31st, 2015. This will automatically extend 2 additional periods of 1 year as in contingent upon the receipt of certificate of insurance.
Mr. Cordez, you want to talk about this before there's a move?
Well, you know, we've been vacant downstairs for a number of years. 2 organizations have tried very valiantly to have a cafe down there. The last one lasted quite a little while. Unfortunately, especially in the summer months, there's not a lot of patronage to the cafe. I think all their Wednesday business came from us having lunch during our sessions. So we had an inquiry from an Elyria firm, and we had an inquiry from this firm to reopen that cafe, excuse me, to reopen that cafe. We had them submit sample menus, did walkthroughs, discussed operations with them, and we came out with this one as probably being the best alternative for us right now. Hopefully it works out. When it was here, it was really nice for the employees. We did have some walk-in business off the street, not much. I'm hopeful that they'll do a delivery service maybe into the Justice Center for those folks over there.
Was there ever discussion with the kiosk that we spoke about a few years ago in the Justice Center?
Remember the problem what happened with the kiosks? Let me reel us back a little bit. It was the cost of the kiosks and the changes that we had to make in the ROI. Now, when we installed the cafe downstairs, we recovered all of our costs on that, and then we made a little bit of money on that with our rent. So we had a net result of zero outlays to the taxpayers to provide that cafe down there. The cost of putting the kiosks in of the Justice Center was close to $20,000 with the necessary facility changes.
Refrigeration.
And we just couldn't get a clear line of sight to a recovery period that made a lot of sense. And now we can go back and take a look at that. I think it would do well there. I'm certain that coffee and donuts and the likes in the morning would be well appreciated by the employees there. Plus, they have a lot more foot traffic than we do here. I certainly can have those discussions, but you got to be willing to look at a longer ROI. Last time we based it on about a 5 or 7 year ROI, and even if we got $500 a month rent there, and then by the time we had our expenditures, and utilities, and so forth, it got a little close to being challenged to recover those funds. But if you want to look at it again, I certainly do. Remember, we were looking in that corner down by the clerk of courts. Back there's a big area off the lobby there where kiosks could fit very nicely. The problem is there's no plumbing back there. It's not built out for the electrical needs. So all of those changes become a little bit costly.
I wasn't part of any of these discussions necessarily that they were coming. I didn't even know had the people out there until it got brought up last week. So I just didn't know how far those discussions had
Well, it was
gone.
surprising. Nobody, for a couple of years, nobody wanted to bother with
Right.
that. Then all of a sudden, one person comes in, and 2 weeks later, we get an email asking if they can come in and take a look also. They'd be interested.
Sure. Well, I'm hoping it works out. I look forward to have someone down there. So.
Yep. Going back to the Justice Center, for me, if you want to look into it, I would like to see a 7-year return on investment out.
Okay.
If we go above that,
It's got to make some sense.
you're right.
I can't guarantee that we'll have somebody operate it for 7 years. That's a bit problematic, but the cost should be recoverable if it's successful within about that period of time. I agree.
Not on a lighter mood, I got a joke about this. Were we successful in me supporting Mr. Kalo and getting his cheeseburger?
Yes,
All right.
we will have the commissioner's cheeseburger on the
Kalo
menu.
burger?
I don't care as long as we have a cheeseburger.
Well,
I wouldn't even know
Commissioner,
that food
for those that are
they were
wondering now why
proposing.
we're doing this, Commissioner's Kalo criteria for selection was that nobody has a cheeseburger, and somebody better come up with a cheeseburger, that neither one of them is getting on the
I vote
agenda.
no.
So, there will be a cheeseburger. I can't promise you it will be the Kalo burger.
I don't need to be a
but-
Kalo burger. I
but-
need a cheeseburger.
But there will be a cheeseburger on the menu. And of course, I want to thank the Elyria business that put in, that was unsuccessful, for, putting a little time and effort into that to try to extend into our facility. You never know what the future will bring.
Thank you. So moved, Madam Clerk.
Second?
Anything further?
Yeah, I just want to say, I was at the beginning of the discussions with the original business that wanted to locate in the basement, so I'm not really sure how the other business came into play, because like you said, we were years without having anybody downstairs, so I'm kind of committed myself to this other business. I'm going to vote no on this issue. I'm glad there's going to be somebody down there, but I'm just, like I said, committed to the original business that decided to, wanting to open up shop downstairs.
Oh, this will be a first. 2-1, opposite way.
Wow. Man, they're picking on me.
Try it again, that was really good. That
Unfriend
was
him on
good.
Facebook.
Yeah.
All
Oh,
right, Mr.
we didn't take the
Kalo.
vote.
Ms. Kowski.
No.
See?
I'm so used to saying aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye, mark that one down.
That's it. Go down in history.
Approve and enter an agreement with Norfolk Southern Railway Company, Georgia, in the amount of $10,000 to perform the preliminary engineering services relating to the transportation center.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion.
It just feels so good this stuff is starting to move forward after all these years. Mr. Cordes, you have something to add?
Well, I want to explain this to you because this is above and over, and I don't want anybody questioning it later on. Under Norfolk Southern's guidelines to do anything with their rail easements and their right-of-ways, not only do we have to engineer everything on our end and pay to have it engineered, then we have to submit our engineering to their engineers, and then pay their engineers to review our engineers' materials. It's kind of unique, but that's their requirement, and it's contained in a stack about this thick of all the things you got to do, basically, to do anything with the rail organization. They haven't been uncooperative, but they are being very strict with their procedures that they want us to follow. So we don't have anything to submit to them yet, but we're in front of it. We're getting it all ready so that this doesn't end up being a choke point 5, 6, 8 weeks from now, that they won't review our plans because we haven't made this payment. So if anybody's asking about the engineering we authorized a few weeks ago and this engineering, that is why there's 2 different engineering costs that are going to be associated with this project. And again, this isn't any actual bill. This is all A&E work, and we're supposed to have some of that stuff in about 6 or 7 weeks. So we're moving pretty nice. And thank you for your enthusiasm, Commissioner Kalo. It has been a long slug.
Been a long one. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Under Community Development, amend NSP 3 agreement with the City of Elyria for the purpose of adjusting budgets and increase but not to exceed $711,993.30. We're going to decrease the acquisition rehab LH25 activity from $291,960.75 to $245,702.50. Increase the demolition activity from $272,000 to $372,000, and increase the administration activity from $46,000 to $55,290.80.
Any comments, Mr. Romancik? Okay.
I-
Ms. Housekeeping?
Can I indicate something to you, Commissioner?
Without a doubt. I saw the change with they're going to a higher amount of demolition activity. I didn't know if there was expected amount of houses.
They're doing a lot more work, and Illyria's done a fine job using their funds. Lorain has too, but they didn't get to the rehab part, which caused quite a bit of money to come back to us unexpectedly. What I want to tell you is Don Romancak and his team have done a fabulous job balancing this money and making it work and getting on the phone and pleading for extensions because unexpected things happen, like we got $275,000 back unexpectedly. We haven't lost any money whatsoever, and it has to do with the competency and the hard work of your people up in community development. And this money is going out in our community. It has not been an easy program. We cut our teeth on NSP 1. We got better with NSP 3, but they're making it work. And they deserve recognition of that. And I'm sorry I'm embarrassing you here, Don, but they've done a good job. And it's, I'm going to say it again, it is a very, very challenging grant, very challenging in the expenditures, the time frames, what can be done, what can't be done. And they're getting it done upstairs. Much like Keith and Don, things are clicking real well up on the 5th floor right now. I couldn't be more pleased with both of those departments. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Under Golden Acres, approve and enter an agreement with Dr. Ashunson
Asuncion.
to provide certain medical services to Golden Acres effective retroactive to May 1st, 2014 at a cost of $1,200 per month with 60-day cancellation clause.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Under the engineer, enter in a cooperation agreement with Medina County Board of Commissioners for the resurfacing Smith Road, County Road 4 from State Route 301 to State Route 83, Litchfield, Chapman, and Spencer Township in Medina Township, and State Route 301 easterly to Root Road in Penfield Township. Estimated cost of engineering and construction is $2,054,000, of which 80%, or $1,643,200, will be provided by CEAO, and 24% of estimated share of both counties is $95,722 to be paid through OPWC.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Receive and accept the 2014 Annual Highway Condition Report.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Authorize the engineer to execute contract with O.R. Colon Associates, Inc. in the amount of $31,275 to provide appraisal review services on the Center Street Village of Grafton.
LaGrange.
Oh. LaGrange, sorry.
So moved.
Second. See, we're paying attention.
Discussion.
Teresa.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Cortez?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Commissioners, while we weren't successful last night in our 2 levy attempts, I think that we closed the gap on the transit levy. Sometimes you move back a little bit, sometimes you move forward. Sometimes you can move forward even in defeat. the numbers have been getting better and better each time we try. We had a nice educational piece out there this time. I'm going to be meeting, and I think Commissioner Kokoski will be there. We have another support team meeting Tuesday, and you will hear from me this summer because I'm going to ask you to go back again in November. The education's really helping. While it wasn't we still have a big margin to cover. I think we need to continue that momentum going in and trying to get this levy passed. It does prove that the more we get the word out, the more education we do, the more votes we get in the positive for that levy. And of course, with the crime lab levy, we just had some bad timing with some bad events that didn't give us the opportunity to go out there and really try to promote that. With the safety forces, we didn't engage them because of all the events that were occurring. I'm not going to point fingers at anybody or anything that caused those events, but obviously it was a tainted process, and it started that way after we decided to put this on the ballot. So we just remained somewhat quiet about this, trying to work and through those things and navigate a course of action that would maybe be successful. But I'm going to be back, coming talking to you again. Bev is here. And maybe she wants to come up and say a few things. I know that I saw the most dismal turnout for the election last night. I was standing there for hours holding up a sign. I might as well glued it to my forehead and laid in the driveway because no cars were coming through. It just wasn't happening. And I had some on-campus meetings at the college early yesterday morning, and we had some volunteers out there all bundled up, holding up signs, and they stayed there for hours. And some people really tried to help us, and I think that we need to recognize that the hard work they did. It was, and I think we're getting there. I think we're getting that educational piece out there, and it's making a difference.
Bev?
Excuse me. Bev Beidleman, I was chairman of the Transit Levy, and just want to thank everybody for their support and doing a good job. We had a really diverse committee, and we did some things pretty quickly. So we appreciate everyone's efforts, and we will meet again Tuesday to wrap up everything at 11 o'clock, but we're not going to stop. I love the author, John Maxwell, when he talks about falling forward. You know, sometimes when you fall, it's a good thing because you learn a lot and you can re-strategize and, you know, find your weaknesses and then look for your strengths. And so we're encouraged in that. So we're going to keep on fighting. Lorain County is going to have good transit one of these days. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bev. You did a great job, you and your group. Thank you very much.
Remember, Commissioner, there's no there's no shame in defeat. There's only shame in quitting.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so that's all I have for this morning.
Well, with that, I mean, I've been talking with other groups about the more going with a district-wide, trying to target the areas, and going out last night and looking at some of the ballots. It looks like Lorain supported it well, Elyria and Oberlin. I can't say that it actually passed in those cities. I'm pretty sure it probably passed in the city of Oberlin, though, just based on records. But to continue to go out, and I understand your position on it, but they ask for the same thing over and over, and we're talking with individuals in Wellington, Rochester, the townships, Avon Lake, Avon, Amherst, Vermillion, they don't see a benefit from it. And I understand we're giving a hand, or we're trying to help lift people up. It's not a handout, but we're lifting others up. They don't see it. And with dollars being limited, they see it as a tax increase on a service that they're not going to benefit from. And I think if we continue to go this route and having a county-wide district, I think it's going to be very difficult to ever get transit to pass in this county, and to get it where the people who need it, which are going to be in Lorain and Elyria and Oberlin, to ever get the services that they truly do need. So,
Commissioner, 83, actually probably closer to 85% of the residents in Lorain County live in the urbanized areas where transit runs. It's just a matter of educating better the people in those urbanized areas and gaining their support. You know, I know we talk about some of those more distant locations in Lorain County probably not going to receive anything from this. I'm not even going to begin to deny that.
Right.
That's the way it has been always. It's the way it is in lots of communities. You go to Cuyahoga, as big as they are, there's parts of Cuyahoga that aren't served by RTA, but they have a 1% sales tax. That's the way it is in lots of communities. And those communities rise up and they get over those problems and they deal with it. If we just need to go to our adjacent communities and look at where they're serving, they've still been successful with their taxpayers, even though they're not serving every square inch of their community. I want to reiterate that number because we had the local government change. I think it required 83% of the population to reside in the urbanized area, and that was back in 2006, and that number's only grown. So 85% of the people that are going to pay in are going to be in at least the current service area if it's expanded. And we used to be in Wellington, and we used to be further out. But with the decreasing amount of support coming from the general fund, we weren't able to serve those areas any longer. I would just ask that you look at what the other communities have done and how they're serving. Even if they've gone to a regional approach, they're still clustered around the urban areas.
The difference is those urban areas would be the ones kind of ruling, dictating, and where the routes would be, and they would be the ones paying for it. Just going back, asking individuals from a township to pay for it, or anywhere that the transit doesn't go to pay for it, is going to be very difficult to do.
Oh, I agree. And everybody in Cuyahoga pays, and not everybody's served. And they pay it every time they pay that 1%. And let me point out, 1% is 1/4% more than we get just for our general fund, our jail operations. Never mind how much they get for the operating budget in Cuyahoga County. And then, of course, they have a huge issue with their metro parks. I think they just got an increase, what was it, $75 million a year, the metro parks there. The numbers are staggering, but the taxpayers there have been willing to support those services. I'm hopeful that if we continue to educate and continue to gain the support of folks for transit services, that we'll be successful. I think we were down, I don't have it, my 56 to 44, 55?
58, I thought
58,
42.
42 was the final, yeah.
It's not a great number, but it's not an insurmountable number. And normally in primaries, you're going to be very challenged to begin with to be successful. But we've tried. Last year, if you remember, we had a sales tax initiative on the ballot, and the college was on the ballot, and some other big issues were on the ballot. So we were hoping that we'd be successful in the primary, but maybe we'll be more successful in general. By the way, we've never had our levy on in a general election.
The Cuyahoga County that you're talking about with RTA, I think one of the big differences is they do have a sales tax. I believe you agree with me, that's more of a fair tax. And going back and asking property owners again to foot the bill, I think that is one of our biggest challenges.
Yeah.
And I understand we can't put like a 1/8% of a sales tax.
I wish we could.
Right. But, with the crime lab, with other levies, instead of continuing going to property tax property owners, maybe we look at that. And I understand we haven't had much success with the sales tax. But I think continuing to go to those same people and asking them to provide services that they're not going to utilize, I think that's going to be our biggest challenge.
Well,
And I just want to make perfectly clear, I understand there's a need for transit. I'm not saying there's not, but it's needed in Lorain, in Elyria, in Oberlin wants it. And then we're hearing that Wellington would also like to see it, but
well, the interesting thing is MRDD, mental health, children's services,
Job and Family Services.
Job and Family Services don't have levy. The drug task force, and it goes on. All of those things are supported community-wide, and not every household or community uses a lot of those services, but the few that do really desperately need them. And it's an awareness program to the services that are provided within a community that makes a community vibrant, and it makes it strong, and it makes it a place where people want to live. And I do understand that the difficulty that people face the last 5 or 6 years, and the challenges going forward, because not everybody has recovered from the last 5 or 6 years. And we were hard hit in Lorain County. But a community rises itself up, not pieces of it. all of it together as a unit, supporting each other. Sometimes you give, and sometimes you get. That's, it's so, I'll look at it again. Remember, I told you what it would take to fracture transit into different little pieces, and it could be a little challenging to operate it, but we can take a look again. But I really think that maybe if I could, and I'll try to convince you, we'll have more talks than I'm sure,
Yeah.
that maybe a look in the general election before we decide to go a completely different route, which will deconstruct things that we may not be able to rebuild again, that we may ask the taxpayers on a broader base, which would be the general election.
Yeah.
I don't know what the turnout was, but I bet you it wasn't more than
Less
10.
than 15%.
Yeah, I was going to say 10, 12% from standing.
14.75.
How much?
14.75.
Where I was last night, I bet you it was probably 12 or 13%.
Yeah.
Because we were asking them inside what the number of folks that had come through were. So we've only asked 15% of the voters, registered voters, whether they agree with this. Maybe it's time if we ask more of the registered voters whether they agree with this, and that would take place in the general, and it really would be a great general election in either when the governor's running or the president's running.
Yeah.
And I know that's a bit challenging with the board because the commissioners have to run in those same races. So,
The one thing I would bring up, and since I'm the only commissioner, I don't have a problem putting on the levy. I always believe that you let the, people decide on issues, but we just got to make sure that we're doing it properly. And the thing I wanted to bring up with the crime lab, we know, and I think it's public knowledge, I've seen it in the newspapers, there's still an ongoing investigation, not with the crime lab, but with other areas that many of the general public is going to associate that lab with. I don't think we even consider putting the lab on until that investigation is completely done, because I don't want it to tarnish.
I agree with you,
everything.
Commissioner. We as much as we struggled and we tried to distance ourselves from that, I don't think we were successful.
We have till August to put any type of issues
Right.
on the ballot, so those discussions and ongoing,
Yeah.
hopefully will be concluded at that point, and then we can reevaluate our positions.
I believe it'll be concluded. I'm hopeful. And remember, the good thing about the crime lab is we do have a little bit of time.
Right.
Because we have a little bit of money we save way back. That's going to help us. But we're on a burn rate, and I've given you the burn rate of that. And of course, I'm working on reestablishing the urine analysis component of the lab for use by the domestic relations courts and some outside organizations that use that. We'll have a small burn from that too. That'll just amplify the overall loss at the end of the year. But we need to provide these services until we can get into a more positive look at where we're going. So yeah, I agree with you, Commissioner. I don't want to try to do this from being tainted by an investigation. That's why we didn't have all the police chiefs coming out writing letters to the editor and support. They will support this. They use this lab, but they too couldn't come out and write a letter of support for something they weren't sure didn't have significant challenges, and they would look a little bit silly themselves. So.
Well, I was at a function Sunday morning. The Lorain County Police Chiefs had their annual fundraiser, and I spoke to a couple of the chiefs, and they were hoping that it would pass. But they do see the value in the crime lab. Again, I think we just had some issues hovering over, what was going on there that sort of might have tainted, people's perception of what the crime drug lab did. So, like I
Because
said,
this election wasn't, say no to everything, just no across the board. They picked and chose what they wanted to pass.
There was a lot
So
of success.
there was quite a bit of success out there. So obviously these are two issues that we really need to work on. But my concern is, and I think it was quoted in the paper, the money that we're spending to put this on the ballot, especially for transit, those dollars could be pumped into the transit services, which, is it a good idea to keep putting transit on there, on the ballot and spending that money, or should we just go for a sales tax and be, that way, if we're successful as a sales tax, we could use general fund money again for transit?
Well, and that's what I'm looking at. One of the biggest complaints I got were from property owners. And like, you're coming to us to fund everything, and we're not utilizing the service. I think what we should do is we should come up with a plan as far as budget for the county and then for the different departments as far as how we would fund them. And I'll go on record again, I think a sales tax is the fairest tax out there because everybody pays it, and also individuals from outside the county are paying for it. But to continue to go to the property tax, or property owners, when we're competing against school levies, which I'll go on the record again and say school levies to me are more important than the transit levy, just because of it being involved with educating our youth. And individuals are making decisions with how much money they have on which levies they're going to support. And I think with the transit, that's going to be at the bottom of the priority list for the majority of the property owners.
When you're looking at a tax for schools, it's a hefty chunk of your property taxes.
Mhm.
This was $2 a year. You know, if you had a $100,000 house, if you had a $200,000 house, you probably really aren't worried about $4.
Well, I think it's they don't look at, and I can be the same way on certain levies. It's just another tax. And in January, when the taxes start coming up, I know I got sticker shock when I saw all the levies that passed and how much my taxes went up. And individuals are looking at that. So maybe another reason not to put a property tax levy on during May when people are figuring out what their taxes are going to be for that year. But I think it is a discussion we should have, and I don't want to jump into having the debate of just putting levies on to put levies on, because, well, maybe next time instead of being defeated by 16%, maybe we get to 15%. I'd rather come up with a good plan that's going to eliminate the issue.
Well, between our local government funds not coming back to us anymore, it's been forcing us to do these types of things. It's not, you know, it's a knee-jerk reaction to a serious problem of the state keeping all of our money.
Well, with the reduction on there, we just need to make sure that we have a plan where we can go out to the general public and actually show them where the money's going, what we're going to do with it. And again, I think the key is stop going to the property owners and asking them to fund everything.
You know, I've heard this before about the property owners, Commissioner. But the people that are not property owners live places.
Mm-hmm.
And any costs where they live are passed on to them in the form of rent. So in a roundabout way, in the cycle of dollars, they pay. If you live in an apartment complex, that apartment complex prices its apartments according to what its bills and responsibilities are, and then passes those costs and, of course, whatever profit margin they want on to the people that live in them.
Mm.
At the end of the day, everybody ends up paying a share, unless you don't live in Lorain County.
Well, what I'll go back to, Jim, is a lot of times perception is reality.
That's true.
And the majority of the people, when they're looking at something, they're looking at their property taxes, and they know that they're a property owner, so they're paying. And the perception is the individuals who don't own property are not paying, or that they're in a contract and they're not going to see that increase for a year or two, depending if they're in a apartment lease contract where the rates can't go up. So we also have to look at the reality for property owners and the mindset of the voters and what they're more likely to actually go out and support.
Well, I
That's just
agree. Yeah, I agree. The perception issue is huge. It's similar to what we're facing at the airport right now. Remember, I approached you. Mm-hmm. We have potentially $1.5 million for apron repairs out there in the public apron area, and we need to spend $130,000 more to get that $1.5 million. People, I don't talk to anybody that really thinks the airport
Right.
should be getting any money from us, and they also think we give it a lot more money than we do. Actually, we invest about $50,000 a year in that airport. The operating budget's several hundreds of thousands, but we have revenue streams for it, and we get some federal monies every year. We either use them for improvements or we bank them for a bigger improvement. But what do? Do we walk away from this $1.5 million? As a reminder, the airport's kind of how the federal government keeps the hook in you. You have to wait 20 years after you haven't taken one federal dollar before you can get out of the airport business. Mm-hmm. And they just give you just enough to keep you on the end of the line.
Yep.
Well, because we'll be required to take care of the problem out there anyway if it isn't fixed.
You have to live with all their mandates, even if you're
Right.
not taking their money for 20
Exactly.
years.
That's why we still will have to pay for it, so that $1.6 million in improvements would fall back on us anyway.
Well, you know, the whole public apron is spalling and it's deteriorating to a
Right.
point where it's not gonna be usable. And, you know, it's a vicious cycle, and I'm bringing that up because we get blamed for the airport too. I actually hear more criticism about the airport than I do about transit. Most people don't realize how little money actually comes from our general resources, but it's vicious. It's the same way with transit. Unless you raise a little bit of money, you don't get a whole lot back, and you leave your dollars parked other places. And, you know, and I know we've talked about these things a lot, but I think we need to continue to talk about them because most people don't realize why sometimes we have to do the things that we do. There's no way to get out of the airport business, not in our lifetime here.
Nope.
Because even if you stopped today taking those federal dollars, which are not numerous by any measure on an average, this is a bigger grant that we've been working on for some time, you still got to operate for 20 more years.
Yeah, we could just pay them off what we borrowed, pass a
Yeah,
1%
right.
sales tax and write them a check, right?
Well, you know, the check would have to be at fair market value of the lands, or you can probably get another private sponsorship. I never really did talk to them about buying out their equity. You know, the last time I was there, they just beat me to death with so many other issues. I didn't really think about that option. But do the taxpayers really want to pay? I think there's about 13 or 15 million dollars.
Yeah, I thought it was around 18.
$18 million
Yeah.
of federal monies out there. Do they really want to pay $18 million for an airport they already don't generally support and don't really know much about? So, you know, that's one of the reasons why we get a lot of criticism. People just, it's the educational piece, they just don't realize.
And there's a lot more going out there than just your casual flyers too, so. But hopefully we'll be able to get something going on at the industrial parkway.
Oh, yeah,
And
again, I
that's
didn't say I was negative on the airport, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
explain.
To the public, what
Yep.
we're
no, I agree.
facing as issues.
Again, it goes back to the perception.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioners.
Mr. Ennis?
My report will be shorter than Mr. Cordes. I do need an executive session to discuss 2 matters of imminent litigation.
Commissioners report.
Last week, I went up to the 5th floor. Mr. Bailey had his girls, they had a coloring contest for all the different schools throughout Lorain County, and so they're going to have a calendar, coloring calendar contest. So I got to judge for January through December and also the cover of that. Each person that was awarded that month will get a $25 gift card, and I think we're going to ask some of our vendors to support us with that, so we're not taking that out of our solid waste money. But I just want to say, these kids, they put their heart and soul into these coloring contests, and wait till you see the calendars. You're going to be so impressed. Mr. Bailey?
Chemtron has volunteered to
Chemtron?
give us the $25 gift cards this
Yeah.
year, all right?
Right.
Wonderful.
I don't look at where the kids are from, but I'll say a lot of them came from St. Jude's. So St. Jude's has some pretty artistic children.
Did you judge that last year?
I did.
Yes, you really like doing that.
I do.
remember.
It's fun. It's nice to see like what they come up with. It's all about reduce, reuse, and recycle, or littering, and they have to, say something about those issues plus the picture that they draw that goes along with it. And they're really good. But she'll be coming down soon and do a slideshow presentation so you can see all the.
It's
the
amazing to see the creative juices going on in young minds.
It is. It's fun. And each grade, we do one, I pick one from each grade, and I start with kindergarten as you go up, and you see them just getting better and better. And I love art anyways, but it was really fun. And hopefully they'll ask me to do that again next year since I enjoy it. I think it was Tuesday. I think we all attended the elected officials reception at Cork and Stubby's. I didn't get to stay for the entire event, but a lot of nice people up there. A lot of steps.
Yeah.
Older people are like, some
You haven't
somebody
been
with
up there before?
handicaps. I have, but I'm like, how do some of these
Yeah, that was
people make
Wednesday,
it
I
up the
believe, though.
steps?
He does have an elevator. in the
Does he have an
facility in the
elevator?
back, yes.
Oh, okay, good. Good, didn't know that. And then Friday, we had the Democrat Chairman's Banquet, and I just want to congratulate John Hunter. He was awarded Democrat of the Year. all the various officials are people running for election all got a chance to get up and speak, and they all did a really good job. And then yesterday, like we said, I stood at the polls for the transit yesterday, and I had a lot of beeps and a lot of thumbs ups and nods, and a couple people shook their head no, but obviously we didn't win. I do want to thank Bev and the committee for working so hard and being so dedicated and really trying very hard to get this passed this time. So it was nice to have help for a change and us not doing it on our own. So we'll see what happens next time. Thank you again. And our report.
Yeah, extremely busy week. Yeah, I'd like to thank the BIA and the Chamber of Commerce for hosting elected officials reception. Nice to get together with the business people. Again, congratulations to Mayor Hunter. Just a busy week. Lorraine Lions had a successful breakfast once again in Lorraine. Got an opportunity after I went to the police chief's breakfast. I went, WDLW Radio sponsored a polka event with all benefits, all proceeds benefiting the Valor Home of Lorraine.
Oh.
So very nice job. Tom Borowitz did a great job. The owner's staff of WDLW, Dick Bennett, Dick Bonetto, another big polka guy in town.
Did you polka?
No, I didn't polka. Went home and cut my grass afterwards. Not that I can't, though. Great job, Alliance for American Manufacturing, Senator Sherrod Brown, Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur, President of Steelworkers Dan Voorhees did a great job hosting everyone for a rally for fighting against the dumping of South Korean steel in our country and jeopardizing our workforce. Did a great job, had a great turnout. Also, Team Lorain County Executive Board met this week. Ongoing discussions about the executive director search, and Chamber of Commerce had their board meeting. A lot of good information. Kudos to Tony Gallo, who's doing a great job in new leadership there, engaging everyone and his visions for moving the chamber forward. I think that does it.
Busy.
Done. Yeah.
Yeah, busy weekend. Started off at the Cinco de Mayo parade. Very fun. Had individuals over there putting on the sombrero on my head, tell me I look better because my bald spot disappeared. So, a great event there. Enjoy walking that every year. Just seeing the families out there, seeing the involvement with the community. If you haven't attended, make sure you put on your calendar for next year. Breakfasts, Lions pancake breakfast. I tell you, they have like the best sausage out there. Great event. What I love though are their pies. They have an individual that makes the pies. I go in there, normally buy 2-3 pies. That's where I spend most of my money, is actually on pies. And just a wonderful event. Police Chiefs Association had a terrific breakfast. Omelets were great, and appreciate all the support and everyone that came out there. Operation Open Heart had their annual steak fry. Good turnout, great organization, what they stand for, having police officers get involved in our youth's lives. I just want to thank everyone who volunteered to make that program a success. On Wednesday, there was a debate. I want to thank the AFL-CIO, Harry Williamson, and UAW CAP Council President Jim Sloan for putting the debate together. Very informative, and enjoyed participating in it. And I'm sure I'm missing some things, events going on, but baseball season is underway. I'm coaching, and you never lived until you try to teach a 9-year-old who's never played baseball how to do a wind-up. And I really enjoy it, getting out there, working with the youth, teaching them the game. But I'm very blessed. I have a lot of fathers and moms that are actually out there helping me coach, keep the kids in line. Not that they need to, they're great kids. But just working together, and I'm looking forward to a successful season. And then I think, Ms. Kokoski, you got a call on this, and I wanted to bring it up. And I'm not going to ask for a vote right now, but I want you to, the board to think about it. The Supreme Court, with the ruling on opening meetings with a prayer, I know I wear my religion on my sleeve, so do you. And Mr. Kalo, I hope you would support this, is actually to start opening the Board of Commissioners meetings with a prayer. And if we would like, we could rotate the prayer each week, or have just designate one person to do it. And I would hope that you would support this idea. And if you could, just send me an email or let me know, and then we can start off next week.
Actually, I spoke to Commissioner Kokoski about that yesterday, 'cause I saw the article in the PD. Nobody
Right.
called me, but that's okay.
Well, they call it the
But
two
actually-
favorite commissioners.
There must be, that's okay. But I asked Commissioner Kokoski if we're gonna talk about this, because you had said something in the story
Right.
too. Why don't we just have a non-denominational pastor from the churches send it out and invite them to do the prayer? It's done in a lot of organizations that way, and
Okay.
everybody gets a turn and everybody's represented, and then you're not slighting anybody.
I would
I think
be
that would
open to
be
that.
easier.
I mean,
I've been to a lot of organizations you open with a
Yeah.
prayer, so it's not anything
Right.
that isn't, that's unusual, it just has been challenged over the years, and the Supreme Court came out against it, so I'm open to it, but I think if we put it out to the public and then invite pastors here every week and introduce themselves and what organization they're affiliated with, and
Yeah.
give the prayer, and then we can move on.
I think that's a wonderful idea, and it gives them the opportunity to talk about what they're doing in the community too.
I don't think we need a vote, though, to do that. I think we have the ability to just do
Yeah.
that as
Well,
part of the
I-
meeting.
I didn't know if there was gonna be any opposition on it, so.
Well, I didn't see the article, but I did talk to a reporter from the Plain Dealer, and I had said that when I was on city council, we did open with a
Right.
prayer,
Mhm.
like since 2000, 2005, I'm sure they still do that. So it was just a matter of, we never did it here, and nobody ever said anything, so.
Right. Well, and I looked at it, and then, with the laws, and I didn't know if there was gonna be an issue with church and state, and I didn't wanna, at the county level, getting more attention, I didn't want it to become a negative, but with the ruling, I thought it was appropriate to bring up now.
Yeah, I like the idea of having a pastor come in, like Ted had suggested, and
Yeah.
they, like you said, talk about what they're doing in their communities and give them a
Okay.
plug.
All right, Mr. Cortez, can you send out a letter to?
I think that would be our clerk, Tom, if you
All
don't
right.
mind. Clerk, can we send something out to the organizations and the churches, and then we'll just do a calendar?
Yeah, just have them pick a day and.
Yeah. And if we could be, recognize certain holidays as well. I mean, certain things to different religions, like the week before Easter, we may want to have a Christian pastor that would come in for that. And then for Ramadan, having a Muslim pastor come in for it. So, okay.
Well, they would probably pick
Yeah.
those dates
They-
themselves.
They
I
would
would
pick
Yeah.
when they were gonna come,
Yeah.
so we'll leave it up to them. How's
Right.
that sound?
I like that idea.
We'll make the forum available for them.
All right.
Is that it, Tom?
That's the end of my report. Jim stole the rest of it, so.
No. Commissioners will send a proclamation celebrating James Lancaster's birthday of 100 years on May 13th in Oberlin. Board correspondence?
Move the reading be waived.
Second?
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Public comment?
We had a gentleman who had called from GoRail, said he would like a few minutes of our time,
Either
and he
this
sent a
one?
package. We'll let you go first, because you did call ahead of time.
All right, thank you, sir.
Make sure you introduce yourself, where you're from, and the organization you're representing.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Michael Gaynor, and I'm with GoRail. and appreciate the opportunity to speak for a few minutes this morning. Just by way of background, GoRail, we're a national nonprofit. We're headquartered out of Alexandria, Virginia, and we work across the nation in about 30 states to promote the public benefits of freight rail, and then also to educate federal policymakers about the impacts of the decision that they're making in Washington that would impact investment and service here in the states. And just very quickly to review the public benefits of freight rail, of course the environmental impact is pretty significant. Freight rails now move nearly a ton of freight, almost 500 miles on 1 gallon of fuel, making them one of the most efficient modes of transportation, certainly the most efficient mode of transportation on land. They are carrying about 40% of the freight, intercity freight from city to city, and that is helping to reduce traffic on the highways, and we certainly appreciate that. And of course, the biggest impact I think that freight rail has on a state like Ohio is the economic impact. Ohio is fortunate to have the 3rd largest freight rail infrastructure in the nation in terms of miles. Ohio is also home to 11 intermodal facilities, which makes us the 2nd most intermodal active state in the nation, second only to the state of Illinois. And so when we look around the nation and we talk to economic development directors, and I'm sure that your local economic development folks could tell you the same thing, manufacturers and shippers are increasingly realigning their geographic footprint to be strategically aligned with freight rail because they recognize that that is going to be the low-cost, efficient mode of transportation in the future. And so if you're realigning your geographic footprint, Ohio is certainly a state that you're going to look at because of the rail infrastructure that we have in place here. And that's a good thing for the state of Ohio and for the greater Cleveland area. The one thing that we want to ensure is that there are not obstacles in Washington that would prevent continued investment in Ohio and continued increased service in Ohio. And just to touch on that investment very quickly, it is significant. The freight railroads are projected to invest about $26 billion in their infrastructure this year. In the last 30 years, they've invested about $550 billion back into the track infrastructure. And that's all private dollars. All the tracks are privately owned, they're privately maintained, and bar the exception of maybe a local economic development project where you put a spur into a factory or something like that. And so there is some legislation or some action in Washington that we're concerned about right now that I'd like to draw your attention to. And in your packet, if you look at the 3rd page in, on the that has the GoRail logo at the top, on the 2nd page there's a graph. Going back about 30 years, the freight railroads, you may recall the federal government creating Conrail back in the 70s in an attempt to save East Coast rail service. At that time, railroads were not revenue adequate. They could not reinvest in their infrastructure. Over time, that infrastructure degraded. It became unreliable. And by 1980, we got to the point where standing derailments were nearly a daily occurrence. And that's when the train isn't even moving. It just falls over because the track infrastructure is in such disrepair. About 20% of all rail miles in the U.S. at that time were in bankruptcy. And some people were questioning whether or not freight rail service would even continue in the future of the nation. And boy, what a change it has been since 30 years since that time. Congress partially deregulated the railroads and got the federal government out of the business of managing the railroads. Prior to 1980, the federal government helped to set rates and routes, and so we had federally regulated routes going through cities that didn't have customers. Imagine a scenario where private businesses are running trains through cities where we didn't even have customers. And fortunately, the federal government is no longer involved in the business of managing the day-to-day operations of the railroad. And if you look at the graph on that 2nd page there, you can see it's pretty apparent where the federal government got out of the business of managing the railroads. Productivity, volume through the roof. The only thing that went down was rates. And even today's average rail rate is about 42% of what it was in 1980. I'm at a complete loss to think of anything that is nearly half of what it was in 1980, except maybe the value of my old album collection. So right now we have a situation in Washington that we're concerned about. The Surface Transportation Board has regulatory authority over the railroads, like the Department of Commerce has regulatory authority over all other businesses. And they held a series of hearings in the middle of March looking at this issue of the federal government once again managing that relationship between the railroads and the customers, the federal government once again managing the pricing structure of the railroads, and even going as far as the federal government telling the railroads that they may have to allow their competitors onto their private track infrastructure. And you made a comment earlier about the local track. I like to think of the track as the railroad's factory. It really is their factory. It's just spread out over thousands of miles. And if we were to propose that the federal government would force Ford to allow Toyota to come in and use their factory, it would say, well, that's just a ridiculous concept. But when we force railroads to let their competitors onto their privately owned, privately maintained tracks, that's exactly what we're doing. And so we're very concerned about this issue. Fortunately, Congress agrees with us in a bipartisan manner. There is the third piece in your packet is this letter, and it was sent by the top 2 Democrats and the top 2 Republicans in the U.S. House Transportation Committee to the Surface Transportation Board, and it is asking the Surface Transportation Board that they not change the current balanced regulatory environment that exists for railroads, and not to try to fix a problem that doesn't exist. And so that's a good thing. As I mentioned earlier, Ohio is a key railroading state. We would like to see our local delegation weigh into this issue more and reach out to the Surface Transportation Board. Here in Lorain County, you have 5 members of Congress that have a great story to tell, not only about how important railroading is to the state of Ohio, but also to the county here. It's our hope that you might be willing to reach out to that local congressional delegation and ask that they weigh in on this issue with the Surface Transportation Board.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
And is there a way that I could follow up with you after this meeting to talk about reaching out to the local congressional delegation? For instance, I met with Seneca County yesterday, and they agreed with us on the issue, and they thought it'd be a good idea to send a letter to the local congressional delegation kind of expressing how important rail was and the need to maintain a balanced regulatory environment that allows for continued investment in service.
I have regular conversations with Congressman Jordan and Congressman Bob Gibbs.
Yes, sir.
I will bring it up to him.
Appreciate it, sir. Okay, commissioners, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the board this morning? With that, I will make a motion to move an executive session as outlined by the county administrator and county prosecutor.
Second?
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
This has been a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda for a printable copy of the agenda.